All right.
We're live. Hi, Lisa. Hey, we're the Snarky Sisters. I'm Diana.
And I'm Lisa. And we have a very, 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 very special guest today. We have Mr. Joe Jencks here.
Hey, everybody. How are you?
First, before the courts get involved in the recent happenings, we're going to open up some champagne for our adult beverage this morning. You got yours, Lisa?
Yes.
Okay. You want to open it? Where's your glass?
Oh, I hate these openers, Diana.
Not an opener.
All right. Somebody else usually does it, so you're going to have to coach me. What?
Someone else? You mean like a man?
Oh, shush.
That opener is called a thumb.
That's right. It's
all right.
That's what makes us different from everyone else except for monkeys.
All right, smart Alec. Tell me. Oh, sorry, just twist this off. Right.
Can I just say I'm super glad that cats don't have thumbs. Be in trouble.
Some cats do. I know some people who do have cats with opposable thumbs, and some animals have opposable. Well, other parts. Like once I was at the zoo. I was at the zoo once laughing at the tapirs, right? The tapirs, they're sort of prehistoric creatures like elephants. And
right.
One of them turned around with his butt facing me and peed on me.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he had an opposable, male
I tell
member.
you what. So help me through this because...
I think that's just called opposition, not opposable.
There's a word for it. You know how your thumb can go around like that. There's a word for whatever that is.
Prehensile.
Prehensile. Thank you. Wow. Whoa.
Oh, that's
one
a $10
for Joe.
word.
Okay. Excellent.
All right, Diana.
Jeopardy word.
Now what?
Okay. Undo the thing.
Okay.
Twist it.
All right. I just don't want it to splash all over.
Take off the metal cap.
Okay. Oh, good.
There
all right.
you go.
Okay.
Now take a cloth, because this is the important part, because you don't want to spill it everywhere.
Okay, and I just twist it, right?
Twist it slowly and lift it up slowly till you hear a little.
All right.
Beautiful. All right, pour
right.
and drink it. We're eating into Joe's time.
Oh, wait. I have to pour the glass.
Oops.
Okay.
I'm so thirsty. Have you got something?
I do. We're actually still in coffee time where I'm standing, but I will salute you with coffee. The old Roman adage is simply that you should never toast with water. You can toast with anything else. So.
All right. Well, cheers to Joe Jencks.
Cheers to Joe Jencks and
cheers
the
to all of
future.
us.
Yes.
Cheers to a sane future.
Yeah.
So we have our little intro song.
Here we go. Everybody, if you're tuning in, share. It's the Sunday Songwriter Spotlight with the Snarky Sisters. We're live at noon Eastern Time.
Right.
Right here on our Facebook page. With our friends we will commune because we're communists.
Yeah.
Or Trotskyists. I think mine's a Leninist. Arco-socialists, eco-socialists, libertarian socialists. Take your pick.
I've already changed the key. Come on.
All right. Featuring the amazing Joe Jencks and some of his fabulous tunes. Woohoo!
We're celebrating a landslide. Something we don't want to jinx.
It wasn't exactly a landslide.
I don't have anything to do with
less.
it.
That's true. The future's looking brighter. Well, that's what everybody thinks.
Well, half of everybody. Less about 4 million, but who's counting?
Well, we know our rhymes aren't perfect, but perfection is Joe Jencks. Woo!
Joe, thank you for that indulgence. We couldn't find very many rhymes for Jencks. You probably know all of them, right? Orange.
Well, you never end a line with Jencks. You work that somewhere in the middle so you can pick an easier rhyme at the end
well,
of it.
we could have said Joe, but what fun would that have been?
Well, I have to tell you, I'm prouder to carry the name Joe this morning than I have been in a while.
Oh, excellent. Good for you.
And I was so deeply moved. I had a commitment last evening, but I went back and watched the speeches that that Kamala Harris and President-elect Joe Biden gave. And I was very touched by a number of things that both of them said, but I think the one sentence that just stuck out beautifully was that we should lead not by examples of our power, but by the power of our example.
Yeah.
I think it was his best speech I've ever seen him give. Yeah, you're right.
I think that man's ready, for a little quiet time. I think this may be why there's a good distance between the election and inauguration, because somebody needs a little time to recover from a campaign. But Kamala Harris's comments about the advancement of women and about her mother coming here at age 19 from India, and that her mother could not have imagined that Kamala Harris would, be in the position that she's in. And there was just such extraordinary thought and heart and sincerity in her comments. And in a year when we are next year going to celebrate universal suffrage in the United States, it was sort of gradually came in various states for women, but 2021 marks when it truly became national law. And I think there's no greater way to honor women's suffrage and the 100th anniversary of that than by watching Kamala Harris become our vice president. I just am so touched by that idea.
Well, we are so happy to have you here today. I mean, especially like during this time, I don't think there could be a more perfect guest, really. Your songs from your latest album, I think, isn't the Philosopher's album your most recent album? Or is there
most recent album of my own songwriting, yeah. Most recent solo album. Yeah.
Well, that, I was listening to the songs from the album, and I have to say more than one put a tear in my eye, really very moving. Some of the lyrics, and I'm supposed to read your bio first, but I just got to say, one of your lyrics, when we overcome our fear, only love remains. Wow. That's
from... that was actually a song on my first national release, an album called What Kind of Brother, and that song is called Only Love Remains. That came out 20 years ago. 20 years ago this month, in fact. And I wrote that for my friend Mark Spital the night that he passed away. He was an amazing songwriter who died at age 49. That's when we finally overcome our fears, only love remains. Indeed. Well, you mentioned poets, philosophers, workers, and wanderers. I thought I would start out with the lead song off of that record, but it's a great place to begin the conversation today. I wrote the song the morning that Pete Seeger passed away, and starting when I was about 8 or 9 years old, Pete's music really came to be incredibly important to me, and I started to reject Disney and really gravitate more toward Pete's vision of the world. And not that there isn't plenty of interesting stuff that's come out of, the Big Mouse, but, as a kid, I just rejected platitudes and was already at 8 or 9 years old looking for depth of meaning. And I came into Pete Seeger's music, and it was really expansive to me. He sang songs from all over the world and about many different cultures and about the ways in which we can be better together than when we isolate and cordon ourselves off and pretend that we're not part of a global community. And as a kid, it was such a beautiful thing to listen to that. And I was privileged to become friends with Pete. He was friends with many people, so that being friends with Pete doesn't make me unique, but it does make me very happy. And I wrote this on the morning he passed, revisiting his testimony from 1955 before the House Un-American Activities Committee. Asked me here to tell you about my neighbors and my friends, to talk about the who and what, the where and how and when. But I won't give you anything you don't already know. But if you'd like, I'll sing that list of songs before I go. Let me sing you a song about the people that I love, the poets and philosophers, the workers and the wanderers, the ones who walk the picket lines, who dare to stand and fight, and the ones who hold their babies close and rock them through the night. Well, you say it's un-American to do the things I do. Well, I sing for justice, liberty, and civil rights, it's true. Well, I say it's un-American to ask me how I vote, how I pray, or what I believe, but here's a song I wrote. Let me sing you a song about the people that I love, the poets and philosophers, the workers and the wanderers, the ones who walk the picket lines, who dare to stand and fight, and the ones who hold their babies close and rock them through the night. In 1955, Pete was called before the House Un-American Activities Committee. He was called to answer questions about the songs he was writing and what they were about and who he was writing them for, who he was writing them with, who he was singing them for. He was asked questions about his colleagues and about houses of worship he may or may not have attended and political parties he may or may not have had affiliations with. Are you now or have you ever been? And Pete's answer to these questions all fell within a fairly similar parameter. He explained to them, using the term loosely, he said, "Gentlemen, I'm just a singer. I've traveled all over the world and I sing songs that serve to lessen the distance between people. As for these other accusations that you're making, well, I don't really know how to respond, but I did bring my banjo with me to Congress today, and if you'd like, I'd be happy to sing some of those songs that you find so concerning." Well, they declined his gracious offer and the questions continued. And his answers remained largely the same. So one of the congressmen stomped his foot and said, "Mr. Seeger, are you pleading the Fifth Amendment?" And Pete looked at him in all earnestness and said, "Why, no, sir, I'm pleading the First Amendment. If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning, I'd hammer in the evening, all over this land. I'd hammer out danger, I'd hammer out warning, I'd hammer out love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land." Well, if you want to send me to prison, I guess that's the way it'll be, 'cause I won't give you fodder for your paranoid machine. If the price of my silence is shackles, well then, fellas, take me away, for I will live to rise again and sing with a brand new day. Let me sing you a song about the people that I love, the poets and philosophers, the workers and the wanderers, the ones who walk the picket lines, who dare to stand and fight, and the ones who hold their babies close and rock them through the night. Yes, the ones who hold their babies close and rock them through the night. Thank you. Just for posterity's sake, for the musicologist that is researching this archived recording 170 years from now, doing their dissertation on songs from the COVID era, I should note that I got a little dyslexic on the last verse of that song. It should be sung, "I will live to sing again and rise with a brand new day." And that just feels like it sums up Pete, and it sums up so many of us in this present moment, that we will keep singing no matter what.
Yes. And speaking of musicology, Diana, we had some questions about the Folk Life Center work.
Right, but Lisa, I thought you should actually talk a little bit about Joe, just to tell people who don't know who Joe is.
I know. I mean, you know what, Joe, you have so much that we can talk about, like your whole cultural diplomacy story. I was floored by that. I mean, that could be a whole show. Your work with the Folk Life Center could be 10 shows. So the bio, it just sounds, I'm going to say, quickly, for some people who, there aren't too many of them, but who may not know of Joe Jencks' work, he is a veteran of the international folk circuit, an award-winning songwriter, celebrated vocalist based in Chicago. He merges conservatory training with his Irish roots and working class upbringing. He brings engaged musical narratives filled with heart, soul, groove, and grit, and you heard that. He penned several #1 folk songs, including the ever-relevant Lady of the Harbor. He's also a co-founder of the harmony trio Brother Son. From festivals like Falcon Ridge, Kerrville, Mariposa, and Old Songs, to venues like Lincoln Center and Carnegie Hall, Joe has enthralled diverse audiences with his approachable style. He's noted for his well-crafted instrumentals and vivid songwriting. He serves it all up, and this is very true, with a lyric baritone voice that has the edgy richness of good sea salt caramel. Yes, you do. You have a great voice.
Oh, thank you.
I love that voice.
That's all. That is very kind.
Oh, well, it's lovely. But Diane, why don't you
just
jump
tell us
in?
a little bit about how you started? I mean, you're I understand how old folks like me remember, grew up, started roots in folk music. But how did you start, and what was your background, and when did you pick up the guitar?
Well, there's a whole nother hour we can do just on that.
Yeah.
I'll try and speak succinctly. I usually speak in paragraphs and sometimes essays, so I'll try and keep it on the lighter side. But I'm the youngest of 7 children in my family of origin, and I grew up singing with my siblings. Music was just considered part of our birthright. I think it was just part of what we did. We sang as a family. We sang together in church. We sang doing chores around the house. There were certain rules about no singing at the dinner table unless there was a special, occasion. Like there literally had to be rules put up about when we couldn't sing, because the default was that somebody would be singing something. And, all of my siblings played various instruments, some of them band and orchestral instruments, some of them folk instruments, but they were all lined up underneath the piano. And I could explore those instruments as a kid. And I remember laying on the floor underneath the piano as a little kid. I would crawl into this little cubby there in between the trombone and the cello and just lay there while somebody was playing, because I was so mesmerized by the sound coming down from the underside of the piano. And I would just lay there and listen and just kind of get stoned on the music, really. Like, I was just astonished as a kid. It was an alternate reality, and one I wanted to spend more time in. And so I was involved in boys' choirs and involved in community choirs and music. I was raised in a Catholic community, and we had a guitar group that did the noon mass. And starting when I was probably 11 years old, I was playing for Sunday mass pretty much every Sunday. And that got me invitations to do all kinds of things in the community growing up. I had a gig at, this is something that not a lot of people know about me. For a while, I had a gig at our local ice rink, the Ice House in Rockford, Illinois, where I would dress up in a polar bear suit as the ice rink's mascot, Rocky the Ice House Bear. And I was an ice skating polar bear. And there's a whole other set of stories in that. But I have to say, that's one of the more interesting gigs that I had. Well, who would know it was me, really? I mean, I could just grab a picture of an ice skating polar bear and say that was me, and who could argue,
But you weren't. Were you a skating polar bear?
Well, but I worked in the snack bar And they figured out I could sing, and they'd have me put on a really nice jacket and walk out into the middle of the ice, and a microphone would drop down from the ceiling, and I'd sing the national anthem, and then I'd go back into the snack bar, and people would come out, and they'd be like, yeah, they'd get stuff at halftime in the hockey games, and they're like, hey, aren't you the guy that sang the national anthem? I'm like, yeah, you want fries with that? You know,
Or aren't you that guy in the polar bear suit? You ought to be paid double for that, man.
Yeah, no, it's but you know, so entertainment and performing and theater and music and all of its forms. I was as a young person involved in the Black Theater Ensemble in my hometown. A music teacher who was extraordinarily influential in my life, Dorothy Page Turner. She was my kindergarten and first grade music teacher, maybe second grade too, and then she went to a different school. But when I was like in 8th grade or maybe early my freshman year in high school, she invited me to be a part of the ensemble. And I was the only Caucasian member of the ensemble. And I worked with them for 4 or 5 years, and it was an extraordinary experience for me and taught me a lot about the history of our country that I think many people aren't exposed to sometimes until they're in college or into their adult life. And it was incredibly formative as well. So, you know, I mean, there's so many different places, so many different reference points that all kind of vectored into a particular point, which is me figuring out by the time I was about 12 or 13 that I wanted to be a folk singer for a living. That's really what I wanted to do. And I'm sure my mother thought that was a fine idea and that I would probably change my mind many times before it was of consequence. And I'm pretty sure my dad, as loving and supportive as he was, thought that this was going to be a contradiction in terms, that sooner or later I was going to have to choose between growing up or becoming a folk singer. And clearly, you know what I chose. But in truth, he was incredibly supportive of my choices, even when he didn't understand them. And he died, sadly, when I was 19, right after my freshman year in college. And my mom died when I was in my early 20s. And but they really supported my dreams. And when I said I want to be a musician, my mom said, you're going to conservatory. You're going to go become a musician if that's what you want to do. If it's really what you want to do, you give it everything you have. There are no half measures here. If you're not willing to give it everything you have, go do something else. But if that's really what you want to do, then go learn the tools of the trade. Go learn the things you need to know to be a musician. And I hear stories from colleagues and friends about how they had to fight their parents. And many of them went into other careers and came back to music in their adult lives when they were no longer subject to a family system that wanted to, you know, tell them to play it safe. And I look back with such extraordinary gratitude that my parents and my siblings, 2 of 1, really encouraged me to follow my heart and follow my dreams.
Well, there's so much we can talk about today.
I think everybody is enriched by that decision, by the way.
Absolutely. I wanted to talk about the cultural ambassador work that you did, because I think it really ties into some of the things we're dealing with right now in this country.
She wants you to tell the Grenada story.
Oh, okay. Great.
But we want you to sing something really soon, too.
Yeah, we could talk. I mean, that story is just so much fun. You can find it on Joe Jencks' website.
Let me sing you a song first, and then we'll get into that story.
Great.
All right.
This is one that I wrote on the 50th anniversary of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's assassination. I was teaching at a retreat center in North Carolina, and I woke up that morning, and this song just, wherever they come from, you know, the great ether, it just downloaded. And it's called simply Martin. January 15th, 1929, born in the city of Atlanta, just another preacher's kid singing in the choir. This kid had a vision, reach for something higher. 6 years old when segregation put him in his place. Started school and lost his childhood friends. Where questioning the order of society and faith. Many deeper truths which one cannot escape. Martin, oh Martin Luther King, keep holding on to what you know is true. Living out the teachings, continuing to sing. Martin, oh Martin Luther King. Booker T. Washington High School was the place he began to raise his voice on poverty and race. Headed off to Morehouse, a 15-year-old sage, chasing dreams of dignity beyond his youthful age. Martin, oh Martin Luther King, keep speaking up for what you know is true. Living out the teachings, continuing to sing. Martin, oh Martin Luther King. Studying the sacred word challenged him to grow. He headed for Montgomery, toward a fate he could not know. City buses, boycotts, peaceful marches in the street. A bomb thrown through a window, crowd of thorns laid at his feet. Albany to Birmingham, St. Augustine to Selma, Boston, New York City, Chicago and D.C., carrying the burden and the banner of equality till 1968, April 4th, Memphis, Tennessee. Martin, oh Martin Luther King, we will speak for what we know is true. Living out the teachings, continuing to sing. Martin, oh Martin Luther King. Martin, oh Martin Luther King, we will speak for what we know is true. Living out the teachings, continuing to sing. Martin, oh Martin Luther King. Living out your teachings, continuing to sing. Martin, oh Martin Luther King. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King.
Yeah, that was beautiful, Joe. It's really beautiful.
Thank you. I you know, there's a whole lot of wounds that need to be healed right now in a lot of places for a lot of people. And somehow we will do it because we do. And you know, King to me still represents, and I think for many people in my generation, though we didn't grow up, you know, hearing him or knowing him, you know, he represents an extraordinary idea that love and ethics and conscience and perseverance, they will carry the day. That there is a long and slow arc toward justice, but we have to trust that there is an arc toward justice. It's an act of faith, but it also is faith in action. You know, it's us deciding that we will put our hands to good work in the world and be a part of bending that arc toward justice. And
And as we make our way on that path, I'm going to segue to your work as a cultural ambassador. There was a quote that was in your story that's on your website. The Minister of Culture asked a question. saying that Mr. Jencks sings songs that to us sound very patriotic. He sings songs that celebrate workers, civil rights, and the common people of the United States, but his views are clearly at odds and at times critical of the government of the United States and of your economic disparity. Why would the U.S. bring an artist like Mr. Jencks on a diplomatic tour as a representative of your nation?
Yeah, well, so I'm in Grenada on live national television. This is an old school, television studio. They were like one step past carbon arc lights. There was like serious stage lights there. It was hot enough on that set that you could just cook lunch underneath one of those lights. And I was wearing a full suit because, the diplomatic corps wears suits, like that's when you're doing formal things. And I was ill prepared for just how consequential the heat would be in the Caribbean in July. But I'm in that moment, and I've just sung a bunch of songs from our civil rights and labor canon and some songs of my own that fit into that vein. And the Minister of Culture in Grenada on this national broadcast, he has a weekly television show in addition to his other obligations to his country. And he turns to the chargé d'affaires for the U.S. Embassy there and asks that question. And Mr. Link, in true diplomatic form, says, "Minister, that's a marvelous question. I'd like to let Mr. Jencks answer that." I think
that's nice.
Rock on, thanks. But we'd had many conversations already by that point, and the chargé d'affaires knew what I didn't know about myself in that moment. He knew that I could answer that question well. At the time it felt like I'd been handed a hot potato, but in truth, he knew that I would say something that would make my nation proud and make the State Department proud. And what I said was, "Minister, I think the lesson that my country is trying to impart by bringing someone like me on a tour like this is perhaps in part the difference between patriotism and nationalism. Patriotism is I'm proud of my people, I'm proud of my country. Nationalism says we're better than you. Nationalism says we're better than other people. Patriotism allows room for everybody to be proud of their country or proud of their people." And I said, "Minister, I think the lesson that the United States is trying to impart to a young democracy," at that point, Grenada really only had about 30 years of constitutional democracy that was stable and functioning. They were less than 40 years independent from the Commonwealth, from the British Commonwealth. I said, what I think my country is trying to say is that the voice of dissent is absolutely essential in democracy, and that you cannot silence the voice of dissent and still have a viable democracy. There has to be room for every opinion to be heard, for every voice to be heard within reason. There has to be a process by which people can take grievances up with their government or speak about it publicly without fear of retribution or reciprocity from their government. And in that process, we arrive at some distillation of understanding of the directions that will best serve the most number of people. But it's through that civil discourse, through that civil dialogue that has to happen. And music and culture and the arts have to be an integral part of that. And I think that's really what my country is trying to say to your country by bringing me here, is that if you're going to thrive and be among the great democracies of the world, that you have to leave room for the whole conversation, not just the parts of it that you choose. And it was one of those moments, like I got done speaking and went, "Dear God, where did that come from? I'm not that smart. How did that just come out of me?" It was just a moment, grace under fire, I guess. But
no, Joe, you are that smart.
And then some.
It's just,
Good answer.
Totally want me. But it was, I was being asked to stand up and claim being a patriot on public television in another country, and knowing, this, I don't know where the destination of this is. I don't know where this is going to end up or whose archives or who's going to see this someday. But it was the first time I think I had grown up with this identity of being more of a progressive, of a leftist, of a democratic socialist, of being somebody who, has a very particular view that's usually in opposition to the dominant opinion where I live. And it was the first time that I was able to just stand up and say, oh yeah, no, that actually is patriotic. This is what patriotism looks like, you know, and to look through the lens of that at myself. It's not that I wouldn't have said before that I was a patriot, but I associated patriotism with viewpoints that I didn't hold, and it was in that moment that I realized that it was my job to claim what that meant for me. That it was my job, it's the job of people all over the political spectrum to claim the identity of being patriots, but to do it separate from nationalism. You know, do it in a way that allows us to be great without diminishing the value of others.
Right.
It's part of your patriotic duty to raise those questions and to criticize. That's part of being a patriot.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm going to play a song for you. That, speaking of patriots, I want to play a song for you written by my dear friend John Brooks up in Toronto. That feels like a nice segue, as long as I have this electric bouzouki strapped on. This is this is in the mandolin family, this instrument, in case people are wondering, as is this one over here. It's a bouzouki built in the shape.
You have two bouzouki, so what is it? 2 courses, 4 strings, 2
Yeah,
courses?
it's like a mandolin. It's
and
in
it's
the mandolin
tuned
family.
like a mandolin or tuned
It
how?
can be tuned like a mandolin. I have both of these in what's known as cross fiddle or cross tuning, which is instead of GDAE, which would be standard mandolin or octave mandolin tuning, same as the violin. This is GD-GD, which is for those that are guitar players out there, that's a little bit like dadgad for a mandolin.
Mm-hmm.
So GD-GD, and there's a lot of Appalachian fiddle tunes that are in this tuning because it makes the fiddle a little easier to noodle around with the mountain dulcimer. That puts them in a similar tuning.
It is very dulcimer sounding, but then how do you get all that lush reverb? Is that your amp?
I've got a little pedal board down here with a few things, and I've got a little. It's got a lot of. It's got a little jangle to it, just because it's octave strung, sort of like a Rickenbacker 12-string, like Roger McGuinn used to play.
Yeah,
so it's got a little bit of that tone, but then I've got a little digital delay on here, and then I'm going just through a straight up Fender Princeton Reverb amp here. And it's not, I'm not hosing it with reverb. It's got some, but you know, so part of it's the instrument and part of it's the stuff. But I was such a diehard acoustic guy growing up. As a kid, I was all a purist about folk, all acoustic. And I'm so glad that I saved the electric bouzouki and other electric instruments for my midlife crisis, because I'm having so much damn fun. I can't believe that I waited until I was in my mid-40s to do this stuff.
Well, one of my questions was going to be, do you ever feel like just rocking out, like, you know, get a stack of Marshalls or a stack of Fenders and getting some friends and just like pentangle 10 times that? Do you ever feel like that?
No.
No!
Sorry. If I could do that at a volume that wouldn't hurt my ears, I'd be thrilled to do it. The problem is most people, once they get that,
hearing?
like you know, I have ears that have served me well thus far in my life. I'd like to keep them for another 50 or 60 years, you know.
That sounds like a wuss, but anyway, go ahead.
But, you know, I think that's what chased me out of rock and roll as a kid. It wasn't the music. It just hurt my ears. It was too loud. And I remember trying to do a version of Crazy Train on my acoustic guitar, Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train. It didn't quite translate.
Ozzy Osbourne.
My friends were like, "You got to sing Crazy Train," and I was like, "Nah, maybe not." But I did do. I don't remember all the words, but I did do. Goodbye to romance, yeah. Goodbye to friends, I say. Goodbye to all. I guess we'll meet in the end. I may have to resurrect it on the electric bouzouki, actually.
I think you should. And
you guys know that Ozzy Osbourne tune? He wrote it after Randy Rhoads died.
Yes. I see a future electric album for you. Joe Jencks sings the Ramones. What?
Wow.
No.
Hey, I'm open to it. You want to find a producer who's willing
Sure.
to back it? Let's do it.
Definitely.
You find me an executive producer, it's a done deal.
We got it. All right. You're on tape now. We got you. All right, now play another song for us, please.
Well, now I just changed my mind about what I want to play after that, because you were talking
A
about
Ramones
rocking
song?
out. No. I'm gonna play a piece that I resurrected from the Library of Congress Folk Archives. And it's called Battle Axe. And
We love this song. We love this song. When we heard this song, we went, this is crazy, because how could this have been such an old gospel, found in a penitentiary by...
Yeah, we heard this one live. It was awesome.
Oh boy, it was awesome, and everyone wanted to get up and stand up and stomp their feet and sing. This is a fabulous song.
Diana, we need to shut up and let him sing.
Oh.
Yeah, this is good. We're gonna have to do this again, because you two are just too much fun to hang out with. This is great. So yeah, I was delighted to get a small grant from the Library of Congress this year to put together a concert over the summer. And it was a great COVID quarantine kind of project. I dove deep in the archives, and I knew exactly where I wanted to go. I wanted to go to the Reverb prison in Florida, usually a place people are trying to get out of, but I was trying to get my head into it. And recordings that were made by the Lomax family over 3 days, June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 1939. And there were a few versions of songs that you would know, John Henry and a few other things. But then there were all these songs that I had never heard and most people had never heard. But of course, this Gussie Slater, the woman that sang this in the prison chapel, it's her singing with all of these other women singing around her and call and response, and it's all a cappella. And of course, not being myself a black gospel choir, I had to find a way to bring that kind of righteousness, and that's the best word I could use, is righteousness, to the words that she was singing in her style. And I thought, if Gussie had been able to get her hands on sounds like this, I think she would have felt the power of the Holy Spirit in that sound. And so one of the things that's interesting in this song is that, there were spaces where words were inaudible, and I had to do a little bit of forensic songwriting and fill in the gaps. And then a couple of places where there were just gaps in the story. And so there's one verse I wrote entirely on this one. I just think of it as anthropological songwriting. I just fit it into the story. Because I realized if I had to do research to understand what Gussie was singing about, anybody else would. And so I wanted to put in the missing link in the story so people would get the connection. So this is Battle Axe, updated for this century, but originally sung by a woman named Gussie Slater in the Reverb prison in 1939. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle. Shelter in a mighty storm. Can no man do like Jesus? Not a mumbling word he said. He just walked right down to Lazarus' grave and he raised him from the dead. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle. Shelter in a mighty storm. Easter night he started back home. Stopped in Jerusalem while pressing along. Folks heard a doctor's got more treasure than gold. Doctor, can you feed a dying soul? He's a battle axe in the time of a battle. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle, shelter in a mighty storm. Had it not been for Adam, there would not have been no sin. Adam broke the laws of these commands, now we got a debt to pay. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle, shelter in a mighty storm. When Mary was seeking for religion, she was only 12 years old. She was leaping over hills and knocking. She knocked at Abraham's door. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle, a shelter in a mighty storm. Just like Abraham and Sarah, Mary had her unloving son. She brought to the world a Savior, and now every battle's won. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle, shelter in a mighty storm. A is for Almighty, that's true. B is for baby like me and you. C is for Christ sent from God. D is for the doctor, man of all. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle, shelter in a mighty storm. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle, shelter in a mighty storm. Shelter in a mighty storm. Shelter in a mighty storm.
Yeah.
Joe, I can see you. Spandex, big heels, smoke machine, not folk rock, but like folk big hair metal. Do that A, B, G. That's perfect. What?
Folk metal. Folk metal.
Folk metal. Are we got it.
Oh, that's
But that's
awesome.
that is awesome. I had two questions about that song. One, the dropped beats. Why do you suppose the dropped beats in that song? Because that almost makes the song. Besides that
bang on.
heavy metal, riff.
And that it took me a little while to wrap my head around how to do that song, specifically as a result of those beats, the half measures that are in there. But it has to do with the oral tradition. It has to do with call and response music that's sung a cappella. He's a battle axe in the time of the battle. He's a battle axe in the time of the battle. He's a battle axe in the time of the battle. Shelter in a mighty storm. So if you count it in 2 instead of 4, there's no
Right.
drop beats, but you have
Right.
to feel it with the cadence that you would if you were doing prison labor, if you were working in the fields, if you were on a chain gang and everything was just one foot after the other. And I think truly that's why it doesn't always conform to our sensibility unless you reduce it to counting in 2, and then it's metrically consistent.
Right.
Because it was a chain gang song, it was a work song.
So
Okay.
goes
But it
from
was
the
also a
2/4
song of liberation and hope.
Right. It goes from the 2/4 to the 1/3 effortlessly when you're counting it in 2s.
Yeah. Yeah, like the half measures and everything, as long as if you count it in 2. But if I were charting, I'd probably chart it in 4 with some half measures. But yeah, it all works out.
It's a beautiful, wonderful, exciting to our old ears, used to so much of the same. It just wakes us up inside, I think.
Well, I mean, gospel is a form that, in its modern sense, emerged out of Chicago. Thomas A. Dorsey founded the Gospel Choir Association of America, and it wrote the gospel song "Precious Lord," one of the most sort of venerated songs, and sort of really made the shift from spirituals into what we think of as modern gospel as a unique form. But that music traveled all over in the 30s, and also is in many ways the foundations of Motown. And so it's kind of trippy to me to hear some rhythms and grooves coming out of this prison yard in 1939 that really didn't evolve into pop culture for another quarter of a century.
They sound contemporary. Well, Ken Roseman just commented, he said, folk metal, it exists. Hey, Ken.
Oh, of course it does.
Thank you, Ken. That's great.
Hi, Mike. Hi, Jeff. We got a bunch of
my
fans
other
watching.
question about that song was, didn't Ruby? I mean, the Lomax family went. Of course, some people don't know the Lomax family went to the South and Appalachia and recorded songs from normal people who had these songs passed down through generations. Was Ruby the one who went into the women's prison? Because
yes, she did. She did. She was not allowed into the men's wing of the prison, and John A. Lomax was not allowed into the women's wing. She took their mobile recording device, which I'm sure weighed half a ton. When John started out with his son Alan in 1933, their first grant-funded project seeking songs throughout the South, they had a 315-pound wax cylinder recording device that they bolted into the trunk of the family Ford sedan, and they took off running. And I think one of the notable things about John Lomax is that he really understood racial injustice in this country in ways that many of his contemporaries did not in the 30s. And he understood the disproportionate number of people of color that were being incarcerated even then. And so there was resident within his work this other mission of lifting up the voices of other people and preserving them for our own record, historical record, but also so that the songs could be shared. And everybody from Leadbelly to, British rockers that were part of the skiffle scene and all kinds of stuff, picked up the transcriptions of these songs and used them as foundational material and spread that as a result of the work that the Lomax family was doing in that era in particular. And so it's incredible that this is part of our national heritage, and anybody who wants to now has access, of course, to these digital archives online, and you can go listen, and it's an extraordinary piece of our history. And I'm so glad that people like Steve Winnick and Jennifer Cutting and Todd just do such amazing work there at the Library of Congress. And
I was going to mention them, because they have this challenge every year at the Folk Alliance, and we went and we were part of the one last year, and that's where we met you. And I was so jealous of people. You get to search through I used to have a carol at the Library of Congress, and I saw a lot of things there, but you get to poke around in the archives of it was the Archive of Folk Culture, right? That's what they call it.
Yeah. Yeah, the Archive of American folk music, I think. I'm still overcome by yesterday's news, so my brain isn't quite working as well as it might. But
well, plus you have like 4 gigs today. Like what's that all about? You were a touring musician full time before COVID. COVID happened, but you're still you've got 4 gigs today. How do you do it?
Well, it's there was a pretty steep learning curve, I think, for a lot of us early on in COVID, as we embraced new technologies. I mean, you came out of the television and broadcasting world, Diana, so this is not entirely news to you, but for a lot of touring musicians, folk singers in particular, it's like, what? Plug this in where? Do what with it now? And there was a learning curve, but I had already acquired a number of great tools for working on, recording my next record here in a little home studio space that I had built. And so adapting that to being able to broadcast, it took some work and some effort. And I sort of refer to much of April and May as tech boot camp, as I was schooling myself, sometimes pulling 15, 16, 17-hour days, trial and error. Because some of this stuff, it's like bad prescription drug interactions that they don't tell you about. You try and use a certain device with a certain software, a certain gear with a particular platform or one web browser or another to sign into a platform, and you get doinked. And so, there's no manual out there that says, no, you can't prescribe this with this. We're all just kind of throwing darts in the dark for a while. But I think a lot of us who are diehard road dogs have embraced this as a way of continuing to build the connections. Because as much as we love the music, as much as we live for the music on some level, I think most of us, it's the community of people we're connected to that drives the bus. Music is what put me on the road, but community is what's kept me there for 22 years. It is the amazing community of people that I have the privilege of being connected to. And I miss them. I miss those people all over North America and parts of Europe and the Caribbean. And, and so Zoom and Facebook and YouTube Live and, Skype and, a bunch of other platforms, StreamYard and Mandolin. And there's all these different things out there, but they're bridging the gap. So, this morning I was doing a service for some Unitarians in North Carolina. I'm hanging out with you folks in the D.C. area. I'm off to sing for a service in San Diego doing the time zone hopscotch thing. And then I've got a concert tonight in Asheville, all from my little musician's bunker here in the basement.
Well, we'll make sure we put the links on our website. And please, can you finish off with one wonderful song? All of your songs are wonderful.
I'll lift something that comes out. I wrote this song while I was on tour in Ireland. I'm a dual U.S.-Irish citizen, and
that was my question.
This is the woman whose last name is Quinn.
That's right. Well, I don't have dual citizenship because my guys all came here in the 18th century. But why aren't you in Ireland since March? Just asking.
Well, by the time it became a good idea, they'd already closed their borders. And if I had if I had a flat there and I had a place to go, it would have been okay. But I don't spend enough time there to justify the expense, so I didn't particularly have a place to land, and I have too many people here I love and care about, and that I'm, who depend on me in one form or another to help them navigate the world when it gets tough. So this felt like the place I needed to be. But this is a song called "The Coming of the Years," and it's a song that I wrote even though my people come from County Kildare. And once you start traveling in Ireland, you understand that matters. People say, "Where are you from?" And they don't mean like America or, France. They're like, they look at you and know somehow that you're clearly of Irish descent, and they want to know where your people come from. And so over there, I'm a Kildareman. That's but as is Luca Bloom, one of my great favorite songwriters. But I really love the mountains in County Kerry. And the song both speaks to that and to the community and to my hope that we all get to be back together again soon. It's called "The Coming of the Years." When I first came here to wander these mountains, my heart was tattered and torn. Ever the rover and all the world over, no land ever felt like a home. But here in the crags and the bogs and the valleys, I found some measure of ease, where the song of the wind is as sweet to behold as the beautiful rose of Tralee. And it's high up and over the mountains of Kerry that I love so dear. I don't know when I will see you again in the coming of the years. I have been blessed to live a good life. I can count my friends by the score, and I have shared meals and moments of kindness. God willing, I'll know many more. But when the burden I've chosen to shoulder is more than I can stand, I find that my thoughts wander back up to Kerry, that rugged and beautiful land. And it's high up and over the mountains of Kerry that I love so dear. I don't know when I will see you again in the coming of the years. When I have traveled all of my journeys and sung all of my songs, when I have given the best that I have and righted most of my wrongs, then take me back to the place that I love. Let me gaze out over the sea. Take me back to the mountains of Kerry and let my spirit run free. And it's high up and over the mountains of Kerry that I love so dear. I don't know when I will see you again in the coming of the years. And it's high up and over the mountains of Kerry that I love so dear. I don't know when I will see you again in the coming of the years. I don't know when, but I'll see you again in the coming of the years. I don't know when, but I'll see you again in the coming of the years.
Yes.
That was beautiful.
Thank you, thank
Makes
you.
me want to go to Kerry and the Dingle Peninsula again.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
it's so
I lead
beautiful there.
trips in the before time, and hopefully once again, I lead tours to Ireland. So people can shoot me a note on my Facebook or my my homepage, my webpage, joejencks.com. Don't forget the CJENCKS. And
Rhymes with Sphinx. No, sorry.
there's-
Sorry, it doesn't.
How about lynx with the cute little tufts on their ears?
No, that
you know?
doesn't work either.
Joe, you are a treasure. You really are.
Thank you. What
You're-
a pleasure to have some time to hang out with both of you. And I feel like we just scratched the surface on this conversation.
We could
Please come back.
Oh,
Please,
yeah.
will you? Thank
Love
you.
to. Love to.
Yeah.
This is good fun.
Your songs are amazing. Your voice is beautiful. Your
instruments are
musicianship,
great.
Oh my gosh, everything. Check, check, check. You're just an amazing performer. And thank you so many friends who tuned in today.
And share.
We have friends on the left and the right of the political spectrum who showed up, and bless all of them. And we have friends on the musical spectrum who've showed up, and I think you are just the perfect person for the time for us today, and we're just so grateful that you were here to be our guest.
Truly my pleasure. Lisa, Diana, thank you both.
Thank you.
What
Thank
a
you,
pleasure
Joe.
being here with the Snarky Sisters.
We're not snarky today.
No.
No, there was no snarking
like
at all.
Well, there was a little bit around the cork. There was just a little bit there.
Thank
But,
you, and
yeah,
have a
what a
wonderful
great day.
day. And we're going to put
Thanks,
links
everybody.
to your next
Yep.
show.
And
All
you have a
right.
concert tonight, so
Yeah.
everyone tune in tonight. We are.
All
Yeah,
right.
thank you so much, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe
Bye-bye.
Jencks. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody at home. See you next week.